Welcome to the Westside Church of God. I am not Pastor Paul Binion. I am an adopted member of the Westside Church of God. In fact, I'm not Church of God anyway. I'm Baptist, and in fact, I would get into a lot of trouble in some circles if they knew I was even here. Amen. But anyway, good to have everybody here tonight. We're going to try to go through our agenda tonight, as Pastor Binion would say, expeditiously, but also try to provide some good information on the projects that are happening in our community. Before we get started, to honor the place that we are in, we want to first have a moment of silence for one of the dear members of our community that recently passed, and she was a member of this church. And what that meant to us is that she was the facilities manager here. And so when you come to Westside Church of God, this place was always managed by Ann Gaston. And we want to have a moment of silence just to remember Ann and to thank God for Ann. Will you join me? So, God, we are grateful for the privilege of serving our community. We thank you, Master, for the privilege of coming together and working together, God, to change some of the conditions that our community is living in. Master, we are grateful for the Westside Church of God and the members of this church for opening their doors and making us welcome here. And God, we pray that you would bless our plans on tonight, bless our conversation, that everything that we do in this place be conducive to better living conditions for everyone in our city, especially in Southwest Fresno, downtown, and Chinatown. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right, well, thank you for that. You have a packet if you picked it up at the table. And so in your packet, you will find on page 1 an agenda. On page 2, you will find a code of conduct. And if you read through that on your own, you will find that we really want you to put some effort into being courteous and respecting the voice of your neighbor. And we want you to also make notes. Make notes. Doesn't mean you have to hold back, but make notes on the cards that are on the table. And you'll have opportunity to ask questions, and then also submit cards with questions if you have things that need to be followed up by our city staff or by our outreach and oversight committee. We have some members here of our outreach and oversight committee, and I'm just going to ask them to raise their hands if you're part of the outreach and oversight committee. If you look around the room, you'll see some hands raised. There's a Jordan and a half sitting right here. Amen. And so thank you so much for doing that. And so if you have any questions about the TCC projects, we are responsible for doing some legwork and helping you get answers even beyond this room. So don't hesitate to use us in that capacity and help and let us help you become more familiar with what the TCC projects are doing. We have in your packet a survey from UCLA Luskin Center. We also have on page 8, Project 7 slides. On page 14, we'll have slides for the Voice project. And then on page 21, Business Development Workshop flyer. And then a comment matrix on page 22. All right, so like I said, we want to be clear and move quickly through this agenda without sacrificing your opportunity to ask questions and learn more about the projects, especially those that are being presented here on tonight. And so the first person I want to introduce is Britta McAmber. She's from UCLA Luskin Center, and she's going to give us information on the evaluation survey information. Britta.
Thank you. So there's a short survey that's in the agenda packet, and I'm just going to read out a quick message about it. give a little bit of information as well as who I am and my role with UCLA. So my name is Britta. Thank you for the introduction. I'm a researcher at UCLA Luskin Center for Innovation, and I'm part of the Transformative Climate Communities Evaluation Team, which is jointly made up of researchers from UCLA and UC Berkeley. And we are hired by the Strategic Growth Council, SGC, a few members of which are here tonight, to evaluate the environmental, economic, and public health impacts of Transform Fresno over the 5-year grant period. So as part of this, we're tracking the progress and outcomes of a number of things, but tonight specifically about community engagement activities in the community, and we're asking just for about 10 minutes of your time in completing this brief survey about your involvement with Transform Fresno to date. The survey will help us better understand who the program is serving and the ways that it's serving them. And your participation, I will say, is completely voluntary. If you want to fill it out, you can. You don't have to. Also, when you're filling it out, if you don't feel comfortable answering a certain question, you can skip it, so you can fill it out to whatever degree of completeness you want. Your responses to the survey will be kept confidential and will be de-identified before being shared with SGC or any local partners here in Fresno. So I just want to say thank you in advance for taking the time to complete the survey. And the information that you share through the survey is really invaluable in helping inform the design and implementation of the TCC program. So I will be here throughout the meeting and also stick around a little bit afterwards. If anyone has any questions about the survey or you want to know any more additional information, you can come and ask me. And I also will say that I have copies of the survey in Spanish if anyone prefers to fill it out in Spanish. And if you want to just rip off the survey from the agenda and leave it on the table, then I can collect them when the meeting's over. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Britta, for that information. I want to encourage everybody to take the time to fill out the survey and give us some honest feedback about the process that we're going through. I failed to acknowledge our SGC members that are here today. Thank you very much for making the trip down to Fresno and joining us for our quarterly community meeting on tonight. Now we're going to have Courtney Espinoza to come, our TCC program manager, and she's going to give us an update on the community engagement plan, workforce development plan, and displacement avoidance plans. Ms. Courtney?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming and taking time out of your busy schedules to come to this meeting. So let me start off with the community engagement plan. We issued 6 different RFQs, and they were published, and we had 12 different respondents for those. The community engagement plan was separated into 6 different categories of community engagement. So we are working through the process of interviewing those respondents. Members of our Outreach and Oversight Committee are sitting on those panels, and we hope to have some decisions made by early next week. Hopefully those contracts will be developed and approved through the City Council sometime in April, and effective May 1st, they'll start work, hopefully. That is our plan. For our workforce development plan, we've contracted with the Fresno Regional Workforce Development Board to oversee the West Fresno Advanced Technology Training Program. They've started their program and are here to tell the community more about it later in the agenda. A proposal for the Voice Gladiator program administered by State Center Community College has been submitted to SGC for approval, and we're waiting for their final approval for that. Once approved, we'll enter into another sub-agreement with them, and the program will be underway. State Center Community College and their partner is also here tonight to talk more about their program as well later in the agenda. For the displacement avoidance plan, the business development workshops will be conducted twice a year for businesses in the project area to inform business owners about resources that are available to help grow their businesses. We have a representative from Fresno 4Biz here tonight if you would like more information on those workshops. and see the agenda packet for the flyer for that workshop later in April. For our first-time homeownership workshops, we're going to hold 3 of those this year, with the first one beginning around the first part of April. The workshop will focus on homebuyer education and financial literacy for Transform Fresno residents interested in purchasing a home for the first time. More information will come. Please make sure we have your email address as you signed in, and we will send out those workshop announcements through the email. You can also call our Transform Fresno website or Transform Fresno phone number and visit the website for that information as well. So we are working with Central Valley Business Diversity Partnership to begin a one-on-one technical assistance for businesses located within the project area. We will be sending out more information regarding that shortly, as we are still waiting for final approval from SGC on that part of the project. Some exciting news. We've hired our displacement avoidance consultant, and she is here tonight. We issued an RFQ for interest in being that consultant and performing the tasks that are outlined in the displacement avoidance plan. We received 2 responses from that, and we had our interviews. On the panel was a member of the Outreach and Oversight Committee and a member of the Anti-Displacement Task Force. And it was a unanimous vote. We think we do really have the best person for the job. Her name is Destiny Thomas. She comes to us with relevant experience in the field and is here tonight. She's going to introduce herself. So Destiny, can you please come up and tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing for Transform Fresno?
Good evening, everyone. I am a combination of thrilled to be here, but also a little nervous, if I could be transparent. Reason being, I myself come from a community organizing background. I've always been rooted in housing justice work and social justice work, and so I understand what it means to take on a role like this. I have a very strong sense of urgency about it, so I'm going to take this time, because I'm so new, still need to hand my paperwork in. I can't speak meaningfully, as meaningfully as I'd like to, about our plans moving forward, but I want to talk a little bit about who I am and what my intentions are, and of course, make a commitment to be as present in this process as possible. So again, my name is Destiny. I'm from Oakland, California. I did live in Fresno for 6 years while working at Caltrans as an environmental planner. Just to ground us in the time frame, I was living in Fresno when the hallmark in my mind in Fresno, I was living in Fresno when Oscar Grant was killed in Oakland, and right before Tamir Rice was killed. And I bring that up and lift that up in this space because my connection to housing justice work is very closely linked to transportation planning, right? So I'm a transportation planner by trade. And I find that freedom of movement is inextricably linked to freedom and ability to stay in place, right? So the same decisions and processes that inform how and when we move also inform how and when we stay, and how we build community and how we build kinship. And so I've dedicated my life to studying these things. I'm an anthropologist. I have a doctorate in anthropology. I'm very proud of that. And I'm bringing all of this with me to this process. A little more experience that I have is I was actually the project manager for the TCC grant that came to the Watts community a year and a half ago. And the displacement avoidance study that we did there revealed a lot about the gaps that exist statewide and locally and regionally when it comes to how we define and how we consider the impacts of our work, even when we're talking about making large investments in the community. We have to be able to preemptively plan for the very likely impacts that it will have on people's ability to remain in place. And so what we found in that study in the Watts community was that it is possible to track risk of displacement. There, for a long time in this field, people would assume and say that you can't predict displacement. We found that you could. We also found that you could identify solutions that disrupt displacement that's already happening and also heal past harms from displacement that has already occurred. And so a lot of my work will combine not just methods to study, because I see that there's a lot of extraction already happening here, a lot of data already being collected. So I plan to do a lot of ground truthing, a lot of oral history collection, and that collection is not just for the purpose of building the case for a plan that already exists. It's more so what I would like to think of as a gift that's coming back to the Fresno community. Just a few people that I have had a chance to interact with within the project area and throughout Fresno, it's really apparent to me that there's been some erasure that's happened through the way investments have rolled out historically. And so I'd like to use this opportunity, or I'd like to take this opportunity to start to tell those stories again in a way that can be gifted and presented for generations to come. So one of the methods that we know in our field for preventing displacement is to highlight where displacement has already happened and put human faces, names, and stories to that. So that's one example. Another programmatic component that we plan on bringing to this process is a restorative justice piece. So I will, along with my colleagues that work with me, we will be facilitating and offering restorative justice spaces to residents of Fresno so that they can interface directly with decision makers in the city of Fresno to actually begin to start the process of healing past harms. So these are just some on-the-ground programmatic examples of things we can start to do today that will connect a strong sense of anti-displacement values to this work while we work as a community to come to a consensus about what we want to establish moving forward. And when we speak to moving forward, I'm specifically speaking to making policy recommendations that can remain in place once this project is implemented that will serve two functions. One, to continue to protect residents that are here, but also as someone who participates regularly in talking about investment priorities throughout the state of California, I'm also aware that from a geographic equity standpoint, Fresno has been overlooked a few times. And so these are the types of projects and data collection efforts and policy efforts that will elevate Fresno and bring in more resources and revenue, because we would have had a public process, everyone's voice would be included, and that's just something that is morally easier to fund. So I'm here, I'm gonna stay the whole night. If anyone wants to give me ideas or ask me questions or grill me and make sure I'm prepared to do this work, I invite you to do that. I'm very proud to be a part of this effort, and I really am just here to create a space and a structure for everyone's voices to be included.
Well, we're certainly happy to have Ms. Thomas as part of our team here in Fresno, and we look forward to working with her and sharing in that experience that she's going to bring here. One of the things, West Fresno, Southwest Fresno, Chinatown, and downtown for many years, they have been neglected. They have not been invested in. And so this is a huge, TCC funding is a huge investment in areas of our city that have been neglected for many years. And so that's going to create a shock value across our neighborhoods. And so we're not only concerned about how that affects current business and the possibility of business displacement in our community, but our elderly, longtime residents of these areas in our city. We're concerned about them as well. So we're looking forward to what you and your team can do to help us, to help those in our community that want to continue to live in Southwest Fresno, continue to live in Chinatown, continue to do business in Chinatown, business in West Fresno, and in our downtown area. Put your hands together and welcome Ms. Thomas again. Amen. Make her feel welcome to our city. Amen. Amen. All right. Now, are there any questions about these transformative plans? Any questions that H can answer? Any? Okay, no H. Any questions that you have, whether H can answer or not, regarding our community engagement plan, workforce development plan, or the displacement avoidance plan? Any questions? Well, thank you so much. It must have been very clear. All right. Wonderful, wonderful. And if you have questions, you think of questions later, please fill out the cards on the table. We'll give them to Courtney, give her much work to do. Every card that you fill out, she'll have to chase it down, and she will be responsible for getting you an answer that will satisfy that question. Please fill out the card. All right. So our first project that will be presented on tonight will be presented by Courtney Espinoza, our TCC program manager. She's going to give us an update on projects 15, 16, and 17. Courtney?
Thank you. Okay, projects 15, 16, and 17. These are the Southwest Fresno Community Food Hub projects. Hopefully some of you remember them. So we received a letter in December, late December 2019 from Food Commons Fresno, saying that they could no longer be the project lead for these 3 projects. So we then decided that we should ask our current project leads, our current partners, to see if any of those that have already been pre-qualified and have the capacity are interested in those projects. We only got back one response with Fresno Metro Ministry, and they said that they would love to lead the Community Orchard project, which is project number 15. So we have requested a new project lead change in Fresno Metro Ministry, and we are working through what their scope of work and budgeting, if any changes need to be made. We're working through that with them and SGC at the same time for final approval. Since we didn't receive any interest for projects 16 and 17, which is the Urban Heat Island project and the Distribution Center project, we put that out to RFQ to see if there's anybody in Fresno that would like to be the project lead and oversee those projects. So that RFQ was published on February 24th. I'm sure if you're part of our mailing list, you would have received that. It's also on our website, that RFQ process. So if you know anybody or any organization that is willing to take on those projects, please go to our website and review the RFQ, or send them my way and I will tell them where to go. That process, the proposals are due on March 27th. So we hope to have more information at the next community meeting. Hopefully we have new project leads already in place and they can get that started. So again, the RFQs are available on the Transform Fresno website. They're also available on the City of Fresno website through the Planet Bid system. So that is the update that I have for projects 15, 16, and 17. And I will pass it over to Pastor Lewis again.
All right, thank you. So if you have any questions about those projects, please hold them, write them down, because we're going to have a big question and answer session after all the projects that have had opportunity to present. The next project that we're bringing up is Project 7, Clean Shared Mobility Network Project, led by the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce. We're going to be hearing from Tara Lynn Gray and Troy Hightower on tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Troy Hightower, and I'm here with Tara Lynn Gray from the Black Chamber, and we're here to talk about our project number 7, the Clean Shared Mobility Network. We have some of our partners here as well for this project. Before we get started, I did want to thank the city and Courtney for all the effort that we've spent together to get this project implemented. First, I want to talk about who we are. CSMN, as we call it, is a group of organizations Some are operators, some subcontractors, some providers. So in addition to the chamber, we have the Shared Use Mobility Corporation, TDH International, Green Commuter, which is one of the larger operators of electric vehicles, Early Readers Preschool, Shared Mobility Development, that's a bike share partner. So just to let you know, it was in the guide, we're going to be providing a network of EV vehicles, vans, and bikes, and charging stations throughout the city and focused on the disadvantaged communities. And then we have Leap, go Ray. He's a rural operator out of Huron that's going to provide trips between a rural community and downtown Fresno. So that's going to be a challenge, but we see it as a big opportunity in the future. Huge. And then we have transportation, and then community engagement consultant. And our community engagement consultant is going to be working closely with the city and their community engagement plan. That's the list that I just reviewed. These are the things that we do: electric vehicle car share, ride sourcing, van pool, car chargers, electric bike, and a customer service center that we're developing. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with car sharing and electric vehicles in general, but that's the purpose of our network, is to bring these transportation systems to Fresno and have a number of community engagement and education workshops to help people understand these new transportation systems, how they work, and how you can use them. This is the status of our project going back to January 2018. We began before January 2018. This was the point where the state, the Strategic Growth Council and their TCC program granted the approval. April of 2019, that's when the state, SGC, and the city finalized their contract. And then following that in November, that's when the city contracted with us as the lead entity for the CSMN project. That was in just this past November. So where we're at now, March of this year, is we're in the stage, we're operating under two contracts. And I don't want to get too technical, but we call them Agreement A, Agreement B. Agreement A, which we're on now, is really about negotiating and finalizing all of our contracts and all of our subcontracts. That's where we're at now under March. And we anticipate, right now we're at 50% signing of our subcontractors. And yes, we're at 37.5. So, but we do anticipate finalizing the remaining subcontracts very soon. This is our project timeline, and we have a total of 10 tasks that we have to do. Task 1, 2, 4, and 6 are in that Agreement A. And so what we did in this graphic is we list the next task over the next 1 year period from our November 2019 start to November of this year. So this is not all of our tasks or the length of the project. So we wanted to just show the first year. Project setup, that's what we're in now. Partnership negotiation, development, we're in now as well. If you see the dates underneath, you may not be able to see that, but they're November to February, where November was the beginning of the project CSMN. So we've actually been working on those since November. The charging station site selection is quite an effort. We've begun that, and that's going to take us a while. What we've decided to do, among other things, is develop a site selection methodology so that we'll have a defined methodology and policy on what processes we go through to select a potential site. So that's going to include a lot of things, from just electrical and physical infrastructure requirements to permitting and ownership of sites and who's going to operate them, as well as community engagement. So we're developing this methodology, so not only do we use it to help us pick sites, but it would help us to explain to the community how we selected these different sites. And we plan that methodology will be consistent with other EV readiness plans that have been developed by CARB, the Air Resource Board, as well as Fresno COG is in the process of developing an EV readiness plan. So in our methodology, we'll be consistent with their recommendations on where sites should be. Then we'll begin charging construction, which is scheduled to be from May through October. We've already started to get permits, so we're already prepared to begin construction. We're in negotiations on the construction that needs to go to support our charging station. So we can't just come in and put a charging station. There's other construction that needs to be done, and so we're permitted on 5 so far, and we've got applications in the work with the city. And then we'll advance to car and bike acquisition, where we actually acquire the bikes and the vehicles. We plan to have some early vehicles that we want to bring to community meetings like this, so people can see and touch these vehicles that we're planning to deploy within the city. Then we're going to develop a web platform for not only for information on our network, but also information on benefits of the network, such as greenhouse gas reductions and other co-benefits. And it'll also be a place where you can find information on other transportation services. So we want to try and be like a one-stop portal. And to sign up for services. And just so you'll know, we are planning to have services for non-bankable residents. For those of you that may not know that term, non-bankable, that means people that typically do not have credit cards or smartphones, because a lot of these technologies require you to have some kind of a credit card or smartphone. So we're developing a system to handle the non-bankable. And then the customer service center, that's going to begin in the summer. We should have it beginning in September. So those are our main, each one of those are tasks. And then we have marketing and outreach, which began in the very beginning and will continue throughout our whole project. That's actually task number 9. But that task will go throughout the whole project. And then we have the operations and program evaluations, which will begin later this year. So that's an outline of our project timeline over the next year. It does continue on. The first year we anticipate to do the most work, and then the next year not quite as much when we'll be operational, and then the third year and continuing in that fashion. So with that concludes my presentation. And Tara, do you have any final comments? Or?
Yeah, I just want to talk about 2 specific things that we added in the contracting process. We added a community benefit agreement to all of our subcontract agreements, and those that have been signed, they have agreed to that community benefit agreement, and the substance of that agreement is that job opportunities and business opportunities that come out of this project, that there is a very strong local component and a preference for local small businesses and a preference for local residents. So we've gotten each one of our contractors to agree to that, and we intend to hold them to it. It's community money, and the benefits ought to go to the community. I think the second thing that we added in the process is to add an additional subcontract. We got each one of our partners to contribute to a community engagement collaborative or consultant, in which we will pull community members and other community-based organizations. We have about 5 that have agreed to be a part of the collaborative at this point, and they're paid opportunities. They are subcontracts, or one subcontract in which there are many parts, to help with the community engagement piece. We feel it's significant. It's very important for the community to have a say in where the electric bike stations go, where the chargers go, aside from those that were already approved in the original proposal. We have some locations that were pre-approved, like the Fresno Housing Authority and Arte Americas and and Central Fish. And I think we have a Bitwise location in there as well. So those, the additional stations outside of that core that were already identified, we want to hear from the community as to where they ought to go. So we are, doing our best to work through this subcontracting process. We've had changes in best practices. We've had changes in equipment. There's a lot that's changed in the 2 years since we wrote this concept proposal. And so we are making those adjustments now and preparing to march this fabulous project forward.
I thought you were going to say more, so I just...
No, that's
All right.
I leave the people like to
All right. Why you put your finger at me, man? I don't do it. All right, thank you for that presentation. Let's give them another hand. If you have any questions, you think of any questions, you'll have an opportunity in a few minutes to ask for some additional information. The next project will be Workforce Development Project sponsored by the Voice Training Program. We're going to invite Mr. Jerome Conti to come up, Darnell Harris, State Center Community College District, and Albina Cruz. So you'll come up however y'all have worked that out. Come on up, and let's hear your presentation. Who goes first? Jerome, who goes first?
Take it.
Okay. So, first off, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you today. I've been in this community for a little over 12 years now, and I've heard about the community meetings. I've never attended, so I'm really excited to be here today, and really excited about this welding pre-apprenticeship program and the partnership with Voice Gladiator and State Center Community College District, as well as the City of Fresno and SDC. I'll make a couple of introductions. Mr. Jerome Conti, our Vice Chancellor of Ed Services and Instructional Effectiveness at State Center Community College District. Miss Cheryl, I got to slow down on this one, Cheryl Lynn Krill Hornsby. So I got to do that every single time. She couldn't make it tonight, but she was a very integral part in helping put this project together. Mr. Leroy Candler, the project manager for Voice Gladiator. Mr. Leroy, are you here? There you go. Got it. I peeked over my shoulder, didn't see you. So glad you're here tonight. Albina Cruz. Told her, man, you've been letting me say it wrong for a while now. So Albina Cruz is our assistant project manager for Voice, and myself, Darnell Harris, I am the project coordinator for State Center Community College District. So before we talk about the project, I know I'm preaching to the, I'm sorry?
I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I feel like it's really important to point out some of the factors as to why we even have a project. And a big portion of that is that the county of Fresno has the poverty rate of 20.8%, which is almost double that of the whole state. And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's really important that we don't forget this. The 38%, approximately 38% of West Fresno living below the poverty line. And when you break that down a little bit, and you look at our African Americans, who are at 39%, and our Hispanic population, who are, respectively at 32.3%, we really have some big opportunity here. In addition to looking at the 21.5%, 21.5%, looking at education and examining the 21.5% of Fresno who have a bachelor's degree or above, and how we really aren't even close in the West Fresno area. That, like I said, that gives us a really big opportunity here for this welding program. A quick overview of this project. It has a 3-year project timeline with a $1.85 million operating budget. And the goal is to recruit 100 qualified applicants from our targeted zip codes. That's 93706, 93721, 93727, which is one I live in. So, it's near and dear. The project has a 2-month startup time period, which is coming really soon. So we've really been banging the drum, trying to hurry up and get this project underway, because April's coming pretty fast. Has a 36-month training program, and we've broken that out. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation, with a 1-month closeout period. So this program has 4 major components, not getting into the weeds from the high level, 4 major components. And you can hopefully you can see it. These areas right here in the gray. So we have the project administration, supportive intake and training guidance, the training and instruction, and the employer outreach and trainee placement. So that is what comprises this apprenticeship program. And those are the 4 components that we'll really talk about right now. So looking at the first one, the project administration, State Center Community College District will serve as the project lead, and will work with Voice Gladiator as subcontractors to deliver the training services. So State Center's program coordinator is primarily responsible for general project administration, accounting, and compliance. Voice Gladiator's assistant program manager is primarily responsible for coordinating recruiting, screening, training, and then participant support. So both programs will work together to ensure that the training, that the deliverables on the training is done, but also work together on the reporting structure and reporting out the success and some of the facts about training. So in terms of program sustainability, both organizations recognize that employment, need, and all of those factors fluctuate. So we'll be working together on a sustainability plan, and the goal is to ensure that we build capacity and that beyond the scope of this current funding, that Voice Gladiator is able to continue to provide training in our targeted community. Okay, so to talk to you a little bit more about the training component, Abena Cruz will jump in here, and I kind of made a joke earlier. I said, spell change doesn't catch everything. So you kind of know that being in education. So, oh yeah.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say I'm thankful for being able to be here this evening, and I'm especially grateful to be able to present this opportunity to our community. I want to say I'm especially thankful because I'm a part of this community, born and raised in 93706. So it's great to be back to be able to present this program. I want to talk a little bit about why our program is different and why it will be successful, and that's because of the 4 components that we have comprised our program of. And the first 2, they're traditional components. There's outreach and recruitment, and we also have case management. But our outreach and recruitment is based a little bit differently. We're going to take a non-traditional approach to that, and where we want to say it's not just going to be social media or the TV or radio. We want to go into the community where people are. We want to go into social settings where they are, convenience stores where they are, whether it be laundromats or the grocery store. We're going to reach the people where the people are. And that's what's going to make our outreach different. It's going to be based within the community. And our case management is the same. It's going to be based within the community. We have Yolanda Randles here, who is the head of our case management component, and she is out of West Fresno Family Resource Center, and it's based in the community also. So with those 2 things being said, that's part of our uniqueness, and we want to make sure that it's in our community, by our community, and we're also staffed with people who are from our community, are invested in our community, and want to see our community succeed. And we also have soft skills component, because when you look at other traditional programs, you can see that you can teach anyone a skill. You can say this is what you need to do to obtain a job, but can you say you have the mindset to keep that job? So with our soft skills component, we're trying to change the mindset and change the attitude of a person to be able to sustain the job and know how to interact in the workplace. And so that's a sustainability factor that we have within our program. And the last one we have is sustainability also, and that's with the mentorship program. We want to be there before, during, and after to provide support services and make sure that our participants are able to handle the day-to-day barriers and obstacles, stress, and problems that come their way. So they have a mentor that they can rely on, call, and talk to whenever they're faced with problems. Next slide. In our next slide, it just tells a little bit about the program. Like you said before, it's a 6-cohort program, and each cohort consists of 25 weeks. In each week, we have 20-hour instruction weeks. And with that, it's a 25-week program, so it'll be a 500-hour certification process. But what makes this also different is that we integrate the soft skills training, the hands-on classroom instruction, the classroom instruction itself, so that the whole day, the whole process is not monotonous, and the participants' attention can be kept. It's going to be non-traditional hours, evenings and weekends, so that people with other type of commitments will be able to partake in the program. And this next slide is just an overview of the curriculum that we have that is being offered through the welding program. And if the participants are taking a 25-week program, they should be able to demonstrate proficiency in these areas, and once they do that, they will be eligible for certification.
So when we look at the employer outreach and trainee placement component, what we have been working through is leveraging the strong community ties that Voice has, and then also the community ties that State Center Community College District has. But we also know that that's not enough. So by leveraging some of our new built relationships with trade unions, industry partners, and other organizations, we really believe that that is the key to achieving our goal of 100% placement of our participants in this program. So looking at some of the goals of this project, Abina really laid out how we broke it down, but I mentioned the 100% placement. So over the duration of this program, the goal is to have 108 individuals begin a 25-week training program with at least 80% completion rate, and then you combine that with our goal of 100% placement for those participants who complete the program within 1 year, and you do the math, and that ends up being around a minimum of 86 families in our community who are positively impacted by this program. So part of me and just one of the questions that I always have to ask is the why. And so that's great, but why? And you know, I threw the number 86 out, and in education, we're really good at talking about the numbers and throwing out the data, and the higher the number, hey, we love that. But when you really look at the why, and it's why are we so excited about this program, and it's because of the tremendous personal, community, and generational impact that this program could play past this funding. By providing support that's empowering. And I know through a lot of programs, a lot of participants feel disempowered, they feel isolated, and this is a different program in that we believe in building the participants' self-sufficiency so that after they participate in this program and they move on, they are empowered to do the next step. And then changing the narrative. This is something that in working with our students in the State Center Community College District that I really feel is a personal a thing of mine. And it's really changing the narrative. And that's that story that we tell ourselves or that gets passed down that, you know, our family is just this, we've been dealt a bad hand, or that's just the way it is. Really focusing on those soft skills, like Abena said, to change mindset. And then simply creating access to good training that leads to sustainable wages in the jobs. That in of itself, that doesn't really need a whole lot of explanation. Then the sustainability piece of creating momentum to ensure that zip code doesn't necessarily mean destiny. Anything you want to add? Okay, so just thank you for your time, and I believe that with our partnership, we have the capacity and the commitment to make sure that we make a big change in our target populations.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you, Albana. Thank you for your presentation. Now we're going to invite Ka Zhang up to talk about the Fresno region, Workforce Development West Fresno Advanced Transportation Training Program.
Good evening. So my name is Kajong, and I am with the Fresno Regional Workforce Board. So the project that we are going to be implementing here is we're going to be training 250 individuals from the 937 706 and 93721 zip codes in commercial truck driving with using low emissions trucks. So the Fresno WIB will be serving as the fiscal agent, and we will be subcontracting out to Oscar's group, West Fresno Advanced Transportation, to facilitate the training, to provide case management, to ensure that we're essentially implementing everything we said we would do and providing all of the deliverables under this grant. So I'll keep this short. I know I'm a little bit hungry. So right now we will be releasing an RFQ to purchase a low emissions heavy truck that'll be coming up within the next month. Right now we are working with Oscar and ensuring that he is aware of everything that we need as far as documenting information, case management, all of that. We actually have a meeting with him tomorrow, and then I just saw a contract come through. Hasn't been signed, but it's been given to Oscar to review, so we'll be working on that as well. And then we are hoping to start training sometime in July. With the timeline, I think we'll be able to do that. We're waiting on the procurement. That's where we're at.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Young.
Thank you.
All right, so we've made it through our presentations, and I have lost my council member. I was going to see if he wanted to have a couple of words. If Miguel Arias, can hear me. Miguel, are you there? Are you there? Okay, good, we'll move on. All right, so do we have any questions for our project leaders? Any questions? I'm sorry, where is he? Oh, there he is. Come on, Councilman Arias, have a word. Let's have a brief word. Have a brief word.
So a very brief word. As you know, our Oversight Committee this year and last year has been taking up the projects that, for whatever reason, couldn't be fulfilled by the lead partners. That resulted in very difficult conversations amongst the Oversight Committee, because our goal is to make sure that we get to as close as the community approved the projects to be done. And sometimes that means switching lead partners. Other times it means having more direct conversations about performance. So this summer is going to be crunch time for most of you in the room, for our lead partners and are entrusted with the millions of dollars from the state and local match resources. So be prepared for that. It's going to be, work time. Get your hands dirty. Move things, please. Do not let any hesitation to bring an issue to our attention go by. We're here to help. We're pretty good problem solvers. After the tough questions, we really help with finding the solution, because our goal is to keep every project on time and on budget. So know that we'll be watching closely. We'll be doing multiple things at the same time, but we want you to be successful, because we want the whole investment in this region to be successful. We do anticipate some huge milestones this summer, including the groundbreaking of the new college campus in West Fresno, and a few other of your big projects. So people will be watching, they'll be excited, and it's time for us to deliver this year. So thank you for the state for being so resourceful and also being part of the problem-solving team, and thank you for the Oversight Committee who spends a lot of lunch hours trying to figure out the best path forward, and to all of you for committing to do the work and to stay on budget and on time. So that's what you should take away from my conversation. On budget and on time. We got some commitments to fulfill. Thank you, Pastor.
All right, thank you, Councilman Arias. All right, so we've heard from some great projects tonight, from some projects that are going to bring significant change to our community. And so now we want to open it up for any questions that you may have regarding these projects. This is a good time to ask those questions of those that are leading these efforts. Anybody have a question? Artie's going to be mic man, and so he'll find you if you raise your hand. Any questions for any of our projects, or for Courtney regarding the projects 15, 16, and 17, the shared mobility project team led by Ms. Gray, or the workforce development projects of Voice and West Fresno Advanced Transportation? Anybody have any questions for these projects at this time?
Yeah, this is for the project number 7, and it appears from what I'm hearing that a lot of this is also not happening just in Southwest Fresno, but throughout the entire city of Fresno. Is that correct? I thought that the whole purpose of it was to erase the carbon footprint in the area where the money specifically was guaranteed for, which was Southwest Fresno.
So actually, the Transformative Climate Communities monies were for downtown Chinatown and Southwest Fresno. And our project is one of the few projects that actually touches all 3 neighborhoods. Well, it's services, so we are providing services in and out of the area. Oh, so the question was, is rural considered part of the area? So geographically, rural areas are not inside the boundaries, but the point is to provide access for the people who are inside the boundaries to have access on both sides. And so we are creating a network that will provide folks an opportunity to get out of their neighborhoods and access job opportunities. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions? For any of the projects that we highlighted on tonight? Any other questions? Oh, Ms. Smith?
Yeah, this is for the, I'm wondering about the stats that were given, the educational stats for the, I guess it's the one with City College, the training, yeah, the 7%. In Southwest Fresno. Where did those stats come from?
So I don't have exactly the source right now, but I can definitely get those to you. Okay.
All right, question?
With the welding classes that will be going on, and we have Duncan Polytech, which is a vocational schooling, would there possibly be like a step in from the vocational into this, if it's, because it's coming from a school district, and if we could like move towards having high schoolers take into a step into this Gladiator program?
Okay, somebody from the Gladiator program, we're going to respond to that. Mr. Candler has his hand up.
Well, Duncan Polytech is a high school program. Washington Union High School already has, they had closed down their welding shop, but they opened it up to this, I think this was the second or third semester they just opened up, but they have a program that will be able to step into this right here. And we already communicated with the people out at the Duncan Polytech about moving forward with that program.
Good. Okay. Okay, and then I would suggest having another, a longer conversation with Mr. Candler after the meeting.
I wanted to just address one of the questions from
Ms. Smith?
Yes, from Heat. Thank you for your question. We're happy to provide you that information, but most of our data is compiled from census data, and we have data sharing agreements with our local school districts, and it's a number of resources that we utilize to create our assessment. We released a report in 2014 that we can also share with you.
That's what I'm talking about. I'll give you my contact information because I'd like to see that. Thank you.
Mr. Gillian?
Hello, yes. Quick question for Project 7 that I'm part of. Just in regards to the timeline, in regards to staying on time, you guys referenced a methodology for developing a feasibility study in regards to implementing where these chargers are and whatnot. The FCOG report that's being developed, we've been working on, I'm a part of that work group, and we've been working on it for 6 months right now, anticipated to end or be finished by the end of this year. It's about 14 months. How does that 14 months of developing that plan play into our 5-year timeline that the SGC has set?
That's a good question. My understanding is that the Fresno COG plan is going to end the end of this year. We don't plan to begin implementing or construction and identification of all the sites till later this year. So we hope to be able to use their information to help inform where we're going to put ours. So the timelines do line up.
So if we're looking at implementing and putting chargers in at the end of this year, we'll look at vehicles moving around by the top of 2021.
There'll be vehicles operating prior to 2021 because we're phasing in vehicles. So you will see vehicles prior to that. We won't have our whole fleet operational by beginning of 2021, but we will have vehicles on the road for people to use later this year.
With the new census coming out, will that have a greater effect on money coming through with this, with the programs? Because looking at the timelines, would we have a greater, with community money coming through to help with these programs? With the census coming, the 2020 census coming now, and we have already a budget, but the last data that was used was from 2010. Now, the timeline is what, about 5 years that everything's going to be implemented? Would funding be coming in like midway from the new census coming now?
Yeah, I think that's more, go ahead, Claire.
I just have a follow-up question to your question. Are you talking specifically about a certain project, or are you talking about the TCC funding overall? So the TCC funding overall was allocated to us back in 2018, 2019 through SGC. That's already been secured through the state. We are not going to get more money because of that census data until SGC decides to release another round of TCC funding that we're eligible for. So right now our funding is set in stone and for these projects. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just messing with you. Morgan?
Okay, projects 16, 17, what is going to ultimately, I mean, don't we have a timeline to make a decision like really, really soon, or that project's going to be gone?
Right, so we did put out the RFQ for those two projects, and those proposals are due at the end of March. So once we get those proposals back, we will do interviews depending on what the proposals say. And so we will have members of the Outreach and Oversight Committee helping with those proposals to determine who would best fit those projects. And then we would have to ask for a new project lead through SGC and go through that whole approval process, any type of modification to the project as we see fit. So we are hoping to do this pretty rapidly, but we have to let the process continue for that RFQ process.
Is there a possibility the city of Fresno would be that lead applicant?
No, at this point, no. That's not the intention. The intention is for a community organization to run both of those projects. And so we want to keep them as close to what the community has voted for those projects. So that's the intention. Would you like to apply?
So I have a question for the WIB Wizards. How many individuals will we train for the truck driving? And also, where is the services? Where is the training happen at?
So we will be training 250 individuals from the 93706 and 9321 zip codes.
And where's the location of services?
It's going to be wherever Oscar, his office is. He'll be providing the case management services, and then we'll be using United Truck Driving to do the training.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions tonight?
One other question.
Yes, sir.
So what with all of this outreach that's going on with our workforce, have we thought about how each of these projects can work together with outreach? Because if I'm doing outreach out in a neighborhood and I'm knocking on someone's door, if I'm equipped with all the information about solar, driving, all of them, while I'm having one conversation, is that possible, or have we thought about that? I guess.
I definitely encourage it, and maybe we can definitely get our two workforce projects involved on outreach together. I think that's a great suggestion. We will be having a partners meeting probably in a couple of months, and maybe we bring it up at that time and see if we can't combine some of that community engagement and community outreach to really facilitate all the projects.
Well, and if we're adding that, can we just say, oh, by the way, I noticed you could use solar here. Can we connect you to that as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Brother Candler's hand?
Yes. I was going to ask Courtney on the second annual Govanza Career Fair. Is it possible for some of our workforce development groups to join with them and come out on this date, because this is next week?
Oh, I don't know what flyer you're looking at.
Yeah, so I don't think that was actually, I'm Eric Chakowski with the Workforce Board. This is a event that the Workforce Board puts on an annual event. It's an annual event that we put on. If you are interested in participating, we are still accepting registration for it. It's at no cost. If you would like to attend as a vendor as well, we still have openings for that too. You can get in touch with either me or my colleague, Ka. Yes.
All right, so that's a WIB project. All right, any other questions tonight related to our TCC projects? Anybody? 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 We are ahead of time for the benediction, but I'm not afraid to close. Anybody? Anybody? Oh, you had a question? Oh, well, why'd she point you? Oh, you're agreeing with me. What do you? Public comment. Okay, public comment. Anybody have any public comments? I kind of had them all together in my head, but any public comment? Pastor Pointer, you got any public comment under your hat there? Okay, all right.
I'm totally concerned about the construction of our solar systems going up. It's very nil, and I don't know why, but that part of our project is a lot behind, so we need to have more conversations about how to confront that.
Yeah, we didn't hear you speak into
I
that.
said there's a lot of a concern that I have is that the solar system's not going up fast enough. I think we have, 4? We have about 8 that's been ordered, the units. I mean, it's been 8 months, and so we need to dive into that.
So is the issue the actual getting them installed? Is the outreach okay?
It could be better, but it's a lot more decent than the other portion, than the other side of it. We have any results? She said not enough. Not enough, no.
Okay. And so, Pastor Pointer, talk to me after this so we can figure out how to move on that. All right? All right. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight. It's been our pleasure to host you here at the Westside Church of God, where I am an adopted son. I did get a text from my adopted father, who graciously wished me well, hosting the meeting in the facility that he pastors. All right. Thank you so much. God bless you tonight. Have a great evening.